Sometimes I really want to enjoy a game, but then it includes one specific mechanic that seems to drag down the entire experience. Don't get me wrong, we all have different preferences when it comes to what we like in video games, but it feels especially defeating when I'm loving everything else about a title, but then it has this in it. If someone's describing a game for me and I hear a certain trigger word, I immediately become less interested before even giving it a shot. And I hate that about myself, I don't want to be that way. One of the coolest things I did a few years back was make a video on trying tactics games for the first time, because it forced me to move past the initial friction and discomfort to see the diamonds in the rough, and in turn found some of my favorite gaming experiences. I want more of that. I need to continue to broaden my horizons. And luckily there are some titles out there that are innovating in such a way that it's helping me do just that. Welcome to another episode of Good Game Design. Today, let's take a look at some of the mechanics I hate and how a few brilliant games go about fixing them. First and foremost, let's talk about the parry. All the way back since the original Dark Souls, I have hated parrying. It always felt like the timing window was way too small, and if you don't pull it off, you're punished with a huge amount of damage. I'll be the first to admit that this is mostly a skill issue on my part, but instead I found it much more effective to simply block or dodge the attack and retaliate, since it was the path of least resistance. Sure, a riposte looks cool, but it's generally not worth the risk, and sometimes you have no idea if a particular attack can even be parried without trial and error, so I always opted for the safer strategy. Then when FromSoft made a follow-up entirely based around parrying, I just couldn't keep up and put it on the shelf unfinished. So how do games fix this for plebs like me who are too pitiful to parry? Well, in Fury, the timing window is much more forgiving, which already goes a long way toward making it feel more satisfying. But you also heal back some of your health when you do this. So not only is it a bit easier to pull off, but you increase your survivability in the process. Or how about a game like 9 Souls? In this 2D Souls-like, the parry window was again quite small, so I thought I could rely on Old Faithful the dodge roll. But eventually the bosses and enemy attacks got so big that they're impossible to avoid without taking damage. So it sort of forces you into putting the effort in to learn the parry timing. And I'm so glad it did because it also includes something called the talisman mechanic. Every time you parry, you gain a talisman that you can slap onto an enemy and do a big blast of damage compared to your basic attack. And it stacks the more talismans you have saved up, so you're much more incentivized to parry here. You still need to find the right opportunity to use them since you're vulnerable as it activates, but 9 Souls also puts a glowing red hue around attacks that can't be parried, which drastically helps in learning the enemy's patterns and making me feel more confident in actually trying to parry things. This led to the ultra satisfying flow state that the developers clearly intended, of taking in your surroundings and only striking when most beneficial. It ended up feeling like a choreographed dance or something. Great stuff. Clair Obscur did something similar, where parrying is much more worth it because if you counter an enemy's entire attack, the whole team will do a blistering counter move as a reward. And as bosses get increasingly more challenging, this feels almost necessary to master. But there's also basically no reason to not attempt to parry here, because you're just sitting there anyway, might as well at least try and improve as you learn the patterns. So games can either make the timing window wider, or reduce the punishment for failing, or if you still want it to be satisfying to pull off, make the benefit so alluring that it starts to feel like the best option for the player, rather than just a style bonus to show off with. Next up is the Grappling Hook. Now, of course, there are lots of games with awesome grapple mechanics, but there's also quite a few that aren't nearly as stellar. My main gripe is in titles like Super Metroid, where you have to select it as an option, line up the exact angle or you miss the jump, and it doesn't exactly feel fluid to use either. Or I remember even way back in I Wanna Be the Guy Gaiden, it tried to add a grapple hook, but was really uncomfortable having to use a third button in addition to jump and shoot on keyboard controls. Though admittedly, that's a pretty niche problem. The goal of a grapple hook is to make you feel cool and your movement seamless. And minigames achieve this by making grappling points a specific spot that your character locks onto as it gets closer. You don't need to do anything special, just press the button and the flashy animation activates for you. Or the inverse would be something like Spider-Man, where no matter the player's location, you can always just grapple to any building around you off screen. It's less to think about and favors fluidity over actual skill. But other games like Rifter or speedrunners use the grapple hook to gain insane amounts of speed, or even pull other players backward to gain an edge, which is great and expands on what a grapple can be used for. Some games still use a fixed angle and context-sensitive triggers, but allow the player to still move around freely for clever traversal. I think we're getting warmer, but what if we can do even better? Penny's Big Breakaway is all about using your arsenal of movement for speed and player expression. But it's also the first game I've seen that just lets you grapple in midair without hooking to anything. Your magical yo-yo just hangs there on nothing, which means you can use this maneuver anytime, anywhere. No trigger point to lock onto, no specific arc needed, and it's used to reach new heights or combo together with other moves to cross the finish line in unique ways. This way the player still has agency about when they want to use it, and skill is needed to make it most effective. But this is the type of style bonus I can get behind. This game rules, man. Last but not least, let's tackle deck building. This is probably the mechanic I have the most aversion to. It's hard for me to be especially interested if a title has cards as a focal point in the gameplay. I really want to like Slay the Spire, for example, but it feels like you need to learn an entire lexicon of abilities and what combinations work well together. It can be super overwhelming at first. And at least for me, I find the gameplay itself kind of boring. Like, I'd rather just walk up and swing my sword at someone than have to select it in card form and wait for the turn to finish. But I've also found several deck building games that I've been totally hooked on. So what do they do differently? Balatro makes this concept more accessible by basing it off of a pre-existing game, poker. Most people already know a little bit about how poker works, or at least playing cards, suits, etc., so there's much less of a learning curve here, especially for those that would be drawn to a game like this in the first place. Plus, the deck building aspects in Balatro take a bit of a back seat compared to the Joker combinations, leveling up your hands, and the roguelike framework holding it all together. Yes, you can build the most broken runs by adjusting or duplicating the cards in your deck, but it's just one of the many pieces you need to pay attention to in order to have fun with Balatro. And the juicy UI here certainly doesn't hurt things either. Or you could do what Party House from UFO 50 does, and disguise it so it doesn't even look like a deck builder at all. Here you're simply inviting friends to a party, and gaining money or popularity points to afford the most expensive guests and win the game. I didn't even consider this to be a deck builder until other people started categorizing it as such. The setting and atmosphere can totally change how it feels to quote-unquote draw cards. Finally, you can attempt to simplify everything like Pokemon TCG Pocket, to make it less overwhelming to new players. The original trading card game, especially in 2026, has so much going on, it can feel like a foreign language if you're just getting into it. But in Pocket, they made the deck size much smaller, you only need 3 points to win instead of 6, and energy generates on its own every turn. So the battles are significantly faster, and you don't have to manage the actual deck building aspect nearly as much. This may become less true as more cards are added, but because of the small waves of new sets coming every month or so, it's manageable to stay on top of the meta and adjust your best decks accordingly since there's only a 20 card limit. Plus, similar to Balatro, familiarity with the franchise makes it way more appealing than having to decipher an entirely new thing. It also got me hooked on the regular trading cards now like a gateway drug, but that's a video for another time. So by building off of established systems, using deck building light mechanics, or putting a fresh coat of paint on how it looks, it can help skirt some of the issues that normally come with the genre. Some of the best card games that I've played work in tandem with the other elements to create something that feels all of its own. These are by no means the only way to make titles that incorporate these mechanics. We are talking about preference here after all. But I did find it interesting how games have evolved over the years, and started taking risks to innovate in their respective fields, and made mechanics that I would normally steer clear of significantly more enticing, which helped me to encounter a much wider array of experiences than I would have otherwise. Do you have a mechanic that you normally don't enjoy, but a particular game turned it around for you by spinning the formula in a unique way? Let me know in the comments below and let's talk about it. I hope we see more things like this in the future, because I think we could all use more ways to make coming out of our shell or straying from the usual games we gravitate toward just a little bit easier. Thanks for watching another episode of Good Game Design. I'll see you next time. Stay frosty, my friends.